My name is Tony Dell, and I guess I'm the catalyst for why you're all here. I'm just a former soldier and cricketer from way back who stumbled into this role when I was diagnosed with PTSD 40 years after I came home. I'm just a one-fingered typist, and I have a $70 Kmart phone which I use only to make and receive calls. I don't even text. I have no idea what cognitive means, and the word comorbidity leaves me floundering. But I do know that since the beginning of time, people have most likely been suffering mentally from the effects of trauma. I know that at Gallipoli 100 years ago, we still knew nothing about this illness that we call PTS or PTSD. I'm living proof of why we're here. We're here to try to make sure that what stuffed up my life shouldn't happen to others sometime in the near future. I turned 70 a few weeks ago, and when I was a young Pom in the late 40s and 50s, how could I have ever imagined that I'd be standing up here facing my patron, a Scotsman, and now one of the great living Australians? My very first recollections of this country was in 1956, when Jim Laker took 19 wickets in a test match at Manchester against Australia. Angus was probably cheering him too. In 1959, as I sat up listening to Richie Benaud winning back the Ashes, how could I have imagined that a few years later I'd be in Vietnam where this all started? Life takes some amazing twists and turns. I could wax lyrical for hours about those twists and turns, but this strange liaison really began when I spoke at a Defence Cricket Awards dinner in November 2009, when Angus was the Chief of Defence and patron of Defence Cricket. We've come a long way since then. Stand Tall began in 2010 by trying to create more awareness of PTSD for Vietnam veterans. But the more we learned, the wider our scope became. Back then, we found that anything involving PTSD at an official level was a closed shop. They were all very territorial and didn't want to share. It seemed that there were as many myths about who was doing what as there were about the illness itself. Luckily, all that has changed. Early last year, over a cup of coffee, Angus and I decided that awareness is good, but a forum designed to change the impetus of where we're going with PTS would be much, much better. So here we are. We have gathered together the most amazing minds in this country and some very interesting people from overseas. This concept has been embraced without reservation by all the top brass from Defence, our first responder commissioners, and government organisations. And just as satisfying is the many NGOs, volunteers, and those involved in various other forms of therapy who are here also. While we know how big this problem is overall, we just want to concentrate on the military and first responders over this 2 days. I'm sure that all the others will benefit from our findings. I said right from the beginning that these 2 days will be all about inclusiveness and collaboration. We have fashioned the program with that in mind. We're all aware of the negatives that abound, and hopefully this is the last time that word is mentioned at this event. We want nothing but positive direction and suggestions where we go now with this illness, and we'd like input from everyone. We could never have delivered this amazing program without Miriam Dwyer from the Gallipoli Medical Research Foundation and Dr. Andrew Koo. Miriam has been amazing. She has done most of the legwork on the program. Andrew has contributed all sorts of very worthwhile suggestions, and I just nodded approvingly and rang the chosen people. Over the last few days, she has worked tirelessly to make sure that the next 2 days are very special. Yesterday afternoon, Miriam even organised a workshop for many of the presenters to get to know each other and talk about their ideas. This was very fruitful, but I should have taken a dictionary. Andrew Koo tells us that if he could repair memory, he could cure PTS. I think we all know, though, that it can be managed. I'm living proof of that, but sometimes I fall off the rails. Can we improve on that? Alan Hartley came up with a line that we used in Stand Tall ads and brochures. It says, "The illness we don't want to talk about, or do we? Yes, we do, and that's why we're here. When I got called up in 1965, I had designs on a long cricket career, so I tried my hardest to get out of the National Service. 9 years later, which included that stint in Vietnam, I told the national selectors that I didn't want to play anymore, after just 4 years at the top. This was the game I loved. Why did I do that? I've lost 2 younger brothers, my wife, and a number of close relatives and dear friends, but I have never shed a tear. But put me in front of You've Got Mail or Sleepless in Seattle, and the waterworks begin. When Tom Hanks walks out into the park and yells out, "Brinkley!" And then, "Don't cry, shop girl, I'm gone." Why is that? I hope that all of you wonderful people can help to give me these answers, but more importantly, I hope you can help fashion the way forward that I've promised the other Tone, the Chief of Defence, and just last week, the Senate inquiry. To thank everyone involved in this journey would take an eternity, so I started to write them all down months ago. Us OCD people do that. What is so good is that along the way, all of these people gave me their time willingly because they knew it was right. They're all printed in your books, and God forbid I've forgotten anyone. There are many, many more who say, "Well done, Delhi, it's a good cause." I say, this is not a cause. I say this is an obligation. This is an obligation for all Australians to try to help all of these brave, brave people who have contracted this illness, serving their country or their fellow Australians. An obligation to help them to become contributing members of our society once again. They want to, we have to help them. 5 weeks ago, Katie Tanasia of Picking Up the Pieces suggested that we all wear orange ribbons in remembrance of everyone who has ever committed suicide as a result of PTSD. This idea grew, and she has now made over 1,000 and sent them to many of the media. She sent them all to the government as well, and she has asked them all to organise a brief silence around this time. Please stand and we'll just do likewise. Thank you. In the words of Martin Luther King, I did have a bit of a dream. This is the beginning of that dream. Thank you and good luck over the next couple of days. I'd now like to call on Stuart Cameron to say a few words. Stuart is the president of the Queensland RSL, who have been a great supporter of what we're doing. Stu?